Hey guys, Level Cap here. Today I am very excited because we get to talk about the new patch that just dropped on the PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds test server. And it comes with the new Mini 14 rifle, which is what I'm using right here. And get this sweet kill on the guy driving past in his Dacia. The Mini 14 does, in fact, look quite mini in your hands, as you can tell, when compared to the way that you hold a SCAR, which realistically isn't that much bigger of a gun, really much at all. The SCAR is huge on screen where this is a tiny little gun. So I think they gotta work on their consistency between the way they render the weapon models in first person mode. And although I don't yet have exact damage stats for the Mini 14, according to the patch notes, it has a higher muzzle velocity than any of the other 5.56 rifles, which makes it a great plinker weapon. It obviously only has a semi-automatic fire mode. Its standard magazine is 20 rounds if you get an extended mag for it, which has to be the sniper rifle extended mag. And it can attach a sniper muzzle attachment and then any kind of optic that you would like. I use it with the ACOG a bit later and it's a total beast. I really like it quite a lot. Now it's got that cool little collapsible folding stock. The Mini 14 actually has many different stock variants. A lot of them just come with the solid wood stock. And I think that PUBG missed out on the opportunity to have the standard Mini 14 come with the solid wood stock, and then swapping that out with the, say, Uzi stock would be a cool way to upgrade it to the collapsible Mini 14. So a slight missed opportunity there, but overall it's still a nice addition to the 5.56 arsenal. Now if you've been watching my other PUBG videos, you'll know that a while ago when they showed that vaulting video, I made a prediction that the Thompson would be coming to the base game, not in the loot crate, and that a vertical grip and an extended mag would actually turn it into the Tommy gun. And not to toot my own horn, but my predictions were exactly accurate. The Thompson is now in the base game. It brings a much needed weapon to the 45 ACP class of guns, since before all you had was the 1911 and the Chris Vector, and frankly most people passed up both of those weapons. I never preferred either of those guns to some of the 9mm variants. But now that the Thompson is in the game, and it starts off with a 30 round mag, and if you put a vert grip on there plus an extended mag, you turn it into a Tommy gun, which has better recoil control, and the extended mag increases the mag capacity to 50 rounds, which I believe was the far more common drum magazine for the Tommy gun. The one that you got off the loot crate did give you 100 rounds. I don't think that's an option anymore for this weapon, but 50 rounds is more than enough. So in a way, it's really like this patch is bringing two new weapons to the game. I know the Tommy gun's been in the game for quite a while, but nobody ever used it because it was in a loot crate, and by the time you made it to a loot crate, you usually had better weapons, so there wasn't much point in picking it up. Now I imagine we're going to see a lot more people picking up the Thompson and eventually turning it into the Tommy gun. It might become a favorite for building clearing. And speaking of buildings, there's a lot more of them on the map. There's been a huge amount of map updates. The only one really listed in the patch notes was a new city that's actually east of Stalber. So this makes the northeastern corner of the map far more interesting, as we have an entirely new city over here, which you can see I'm parachuting down to. It's called Kameshki, and it's got a couple of warehouses and different buildings. The layout is actually kind of interesting. It seems like the level designers have sort of updated the way that they're approaching maybe city design this time around. I found it much more interesting. A lot of people dropped there right at the start because everybody wanted to figure it out. But a lot of other areas of the map have also had updates. In fact, on top of the hill at Stalber, there's like a whole bunch of new buildings, and the ruins have been changed quite a bit, and it looks like it could be a much more attractive spot to maybe even drop early game. You might also notice that there's a bunch of graphical improvements. Now, in the patch notes, it says optimize shadows, and what they actually did here is they made it so that shadows don't sort of despawn or stop rendering at further distances anymore. So if you go prone under the shadow of a tree expecting it to conceal your location, before players at a distance wouldn't see that shadow. They would just see some player lying down on the side of a brightly lit hillside. Now that's no longer the case. Shadows will render from big objects anyway at further distances, and this not only makes the game world look far more realistic and just better in general, but it should prevent that issue. Is it going to hurt the performance? Probably a little bit, but they did say they optimized the shadows overall. I didn't really see a performance hit. In fact, I think generally speaking my game was running a bit smoother than it normally does. Of course, it's hard to judge game performance on the test server, as whenever they start up the test server, I've always had really good performance in PUBG, and then over time it sort of degrades after a while. So it's really hard to make any sort of conclusive judgments on the game's performance at this point. We'll have to really sort of wait about a week or so before we can really establish if we've seen an overall frame rate improvement. Apparently, there's also been a bunch more building optimization, UI optimization. You can actually go into your settings and turn off character rendering. So if you want your player model to appear as just sort of a silhouette, that's supposed to improve performance for some people out there. I imagine most players are going to turn this off just to get any little inkling of frame rate they can out of this game. You can now change the color of your crosshairs. I was messing around with it, and I gotta say that the way that crosshairs are rendered in this game, the color changing really didn't make them that much easier to see. And although I might default to something like pink if I was really tryharding, I really didn't feel like it was a huge advantage in this game. I think they need to maybe rework the crosshairs a bit more, or give you more customization options. Like a Counter-Strike crosshair option would be amazing. Let players sort of choose the crosshair that works best for them. There's a few new key bindings in there. You can set the game so that double tapping Q or E will make your character lean if that's what you prefer. Also, by default now, insert marks your location on the map to your squad mates. So rather than having to open your map, find where you're located on the map and then putting a marker there, you can just quickly hit insert. So if you're like, hey guys, I found a level 2 bag or something that somebody needs, you just hit insert and say it's on the yellow marker or the blue marker or whatever. And so this is a really nice update to the game and should speed up sort of callouts and looting within parties. There's a bunch of new grenade mechanics in the game that should hopefully make them a bit more usable, especially in first-person mode, I hope. Now, when you cook a grenade, there's actually a button that you have to hit to manually cook the grenade. So if you pull out your grenade, aim it, and you're about to throw it, that no longer cooks the grenade, as it wouldn't in real life either, because when you pull the pin from a grenade, you're usually holding the little handle on it, and it doesn't start cooking until you release that handle, which is generally when you throw the grenade. Now, if you hit the R button, you're going to release that handle, which will start the cooking of the grenade. So slightly different mechanics. The grenade will not auto cook as soon as you get it out. Now it's going to take a little bit more practice to get good with grenades, but I like this change. It means that if you take out a grenade and you're thinking about throwing it, and then it turns out it's not needed, you no longer have to throw that grenade because you don't start auto cooking it. There's also a new weather mode called Foggy. It's going to be fairly rare, but they increased the spawn rate of Foggy games on the test server just so we can try it out. I think it's okay. Personally, I'm just not a huge fan of the different weather modes in that they last all game. I would much rather a dynamic weather system, which so many games have these days, where you start off the game sunny, then maybe a rainstorm comes along, then maybe it's followed up by some fog, and then goes back to sunset. Just having a dynamic weather system would be so much more interesting rather than saying, hey, this whole game is going to be foggy. Deal with it. You know, I just find that a little bit less interesting, and I don't know how excited I'm going to be to play the foggy game mode. Now, there's also been some nice bug and exploit fixes in this patch. The AFK player problem should be dealt with when this patch launches for everyone, and it should be dealt with hopefully in the test server as well. They've implemented some sort of system to detect if there's AFK players and change how battle points are awarded. No specifics on this yet, probably just because they don't want people to exploit it too much. But either way, it's good that they dealt with this issue as soon as possible, basically in the next available patches. It was a huge issue. And along with that comes the ranked mode for first-person perspective. Obviously, ranked isn't that big of a deal in test servers. In fact, I don't think anybody really cares about their rank in the test servers. But since this patch should be live in test servers for about 2 days, we will be seeing it on the vanilla version of the game in the very near future. And that should be a nice addition to people who have been playing first-person only games, basically since first-person was available, which includes me and basically everyone I know and play with. And some final cool patch notes. The crossbow has had a 35% reload speed increase, which means that if you get the quiver, that should stack on top of that so you can reload it even faster, making the crossbow hopefully a little bit more viable, as it, in my opinion, was a bit more of a joke weapon. The faster reload is going to actually put it into a realm in which it could be useful for stealth takedowns, and more people might consider keeping it with them. And finally, a cool little update that somebody on Reddit posted was that in the config file, you can now equip, or rather enable, holding for ADS. So if you are not a fan of the toggle ADS method where you just right click and it holds your ADS until you unclick it, now you have the hold option. You have to enable it in config file at the moment, but hopefully this will be making it to the menu at some point in the near future. This is kind of cool. I'm going to test it out a bit later, but I play all my shooters with holding to ADS rather than toggle. So getting PUBG on board with that same system will be nice. Anyway, those are all the major changes of this last patch note. There are a bunch more changes and bug fixes. If you guys want to see the full list, I'll leave a link in the video description. And also, I'll be playing a bit more of this today on stream. So if you want to drop by the Twitch channel, there's also a link for that in the video description. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. This is Level Cap signing off.